One car crash later, I woke up in the body of female CEO Su Anqing's ex-husband. Remembering that original husband's brutal tragic end, I quickly grabbed those divorce papers. I signed my name in massive bold letters. The female CEO's face instantly shifted to pure anger. Chen Xu, have you really thought this through? My heart literally stopped. I quickly gripped my wallet tight. Are you kidding me? This divorce settlement is a massive fortune. I won't return a single penny until I die. After 3 days in this hospital bed, I finally accepted I had transmigrated to another world. An ordinary college kid dropped right into a crazy CEO novel universe as a villainous side character, and I was none other than the female CEO's terrible ex-husband. Backed by his family's massive wealth and absolute power, he acted super abusive and thought he owned the world. He fell in love at first sight with the female lead, Su Anqing, during a morning ceremony. From then on, he chased her relentlessly, using every dirty trick to force her hand. Su Anqing was your classic novel heroine, from a poor family but absolutely gorgeous and highly intelligent. Her dad couldn't walk, her mom was severely ill. For her family's medical bills, she eventually surrendered and married me. 5 years of our toxic marriage flew by. She went from a regular office worker to a massive business world star. Our relationship just grew more toxic every day. Su Anqing slowly slipped entirely out of my control. Yet, I remained completely clueless, aggressively flashing my stupid arrogance exactly like before. Until one day, I brutally shoved her first love to the ground. Su Anqing absolutely couldn't take it anymore and demanded a divorce. Right then, my car crashed. On the third day, she marched in and literally threw the divorce papers right at my face. Her voice was icy cold and furious. Her face radiated pure hatred and disgust. Chen Xu, do you think our little drama is finally over? But the second I actually saw her clear face, my heart completely stopped. No wonder the original body owner was obsessively crazy about her. This face is truly beautiful. I looked down at the divorce papers detailing exactly how much cash and property I would receive. My heart skipped a beat. Oh man, I'm filthy rich. The original owner's family was insanely wealthy, but he was just an abusive, incredibly stubborn jerk. Plus, he had a younger brother who was infinitely better than him at absolutely everything. Taking over as the company boss was literally impossible for him. Meanwhile, Su Anqing's business empire exploded over a few years. She had serious money now. If we finalize this divorce, the payout I get will be astronomical. I've done good deeds my entire life, so instantly becoming this rich is my ultimate reward. After mentally calculating my massive payout, I tried hiding my wild excitement so I wouldn't smile and make Su Anqing suspect something was wrong. Then I took a deep breath and calmly stated, I am ready for the divorce. Su Anqing stood there completely stunned. She probably never expected me to agree so fast. But this golden ticket only comes once in a lifetime. If I miss it now, it's gone forever. Before she could even process it, I snatched the pen and signed immediately. Scrawled my name right on those divorce papers. Su Anqing sensed something was off. Her forehead wrinkled in deep suspicion. I turned my head away, putting on a perfectly heartbroken act, and muttered, I've thought about it, Su Anqing. We should just let each other go. After that, I stayed dead silent for a long while. Just as I was about to hide under my blanket to count my cash, I noticed Su Anqing silently glaring at the papers. She didn't seem to want to leave at all. I asked, surprised, you're still here? Song Jingnian's injury hasn't fully healed yet, right? Shouldn't you go check on him? Su Anqing's beautiful face instantly froze with intense rage. A tiny bit of panic hit me. Is she already regretting giving me this massive fortune? But I've already signed it. Now she can't back out even if she desperately wants to. Besides, I'm letting her walk away with such grace, so her paying me is completely fair. Back in her college days, Su Anqing had a first love named Song Jingnian. The exact opposite of this arrogant, abusive young master, Song Jingnian was incredibly decent, highly understanding, and fiercely ambitious. He grew up entirely without a father. His family lived in terrible poverty since he was a kid, but he worked extremely hard and always crushed the competition in everything. Honestly, he and Su Anqing were practically the same person. He was the only one who truly understood her, which kept them together. If I hadn't interfered, they would have happily tied the knot ages ago. After college, they were supposed to grind together in the city and build a cute little home. The original Chen Xu was insanely jealous. He never missed a chance to violently harass Song Jingnian, always picking fights with him. Eventually, he completely snapped and brutally attacked him. Ever since that terrifying day, Su Anqing absolutely despised Chen Xu and permanently cut all ties with him. Anyone could see the horrible fate waiting for this villainous side character after offending both the hero and heroine. So I desperately need to exploit this setup, grab the giant cash pile, and run for my life. Finally, Su Anqing slammed the door violently and stormed out. I rubbed my chest and smiled to myself. She's so angry. But thinking about the insane money and prime property coming my way, I felt ecstatic again. Unbelievable luck dropping from the sky isn't something everyone gets to experience. While I was floating in these happy thoughts, a WeChat notification chimed. It was Gu Qinghan. Her specific words made it crystal clear that she was totally mocking me. Heard Su Anqing finally paid you a visit today. She's my childhood friend, a wildly stubborn rich girl, famously known for crazy partying and burning through cash. She absolutely couldn't stand Su Anqing, and the feeling was completely mutual. They were total opposites in every single way. Especially after Su Anqing and I tied the knot, our two families started interacting way more often. Her dad constantly used Su Anqing's name to judge and compare her. Because of that, Gu Qinghan hated Su Anqing even more than before. She always scolded me for being blindly in love, constantly calling me an idiot. She definitely came to roast me again this time, but honestly, I couldn't care less. I was way too busy calculating my massive new payout. Who has time for crying anyway? I paused, snapped a quick photo of the divorce agreement, and fired it over. Your boy is officially single today. Throw me an epic party. Gu Qinghan called instantly. Her very first question, are you insane? Watch your mouth the second I'm discharged. We are hitting the Civil Affairs Bureau to finalize this. Thank God the crash wasn't fatal, just a minor head bump. I really need you to come pick me up. Gu Qinghan went dead silent for a second, then suddenly burst into hysterical laughter. All right, young Master Chen, how exactly do you want me to support you? A week later, I threw on an insanely expensive suit and strutted out of the hospital like a movie star. Gu Qinghan crossed her arms, teasing, who dresses like that leaving a hospital? You look decent enough. I shook my head, smirking. You have no idea. Today is an absolutely massive day. Gu Qinghan ignored me and turned to walk out, but suddenly Su Anqing blocked our path. Su Anqing glared at Gu Qinghan for a brief second. Her expression was completely cold and furious. I stepped up, grinning widely. You made it. Where's the car? Su Anqing's burning anger cooled slightly. She muttered, in the parking lot. Let's go. Gu Qinghan couldn't stand this sight at all. She turned her head slightly, locking those stunning eyes on me, and asked, Chen Xu, aren't you coming in my car today? I simply waved my hand off and replied, first, I really need to accompany Su Anqing to the Civil Affairs Bureau to finally pick up our divorce papers. Honestly, riding in her car just makes things a whole lot easier for everyone. After saying that, I urged Su Anqing to hurry up. She was just standing there, completely silent. Why are you just standing around? Let's get moving now. Gu Qinghan burst out laughing and chimed in. That's exactly right. This is a highly important errand, so please don't delay. Su Anqing shot me a mocking look and sneered. Chen Xu, tell me, are you actually in such a massive rush to finally get rid of me? I gave her a completely honest answer. Especially since I know you have other big plans later tonight. I really just want to wrap this chore up quickly so our precious time isn't entirely wasted, right? Su Anqing was always incredibly busy with her work. She only bothered coming home a few scattered times a year. I knew she didn't want to see my face, and, quite honestly, I absolutely hated living with her too. I had zero interest in making it work anymore. Walking away and minding our own business was easily the best choice. The Civil Affairs Bureau wasn't very packed today, so it didn't take long before they finally called my and Su Anqing's names. Right as we were stepping through the doors, Su Anqing's phone abruptly began to ring. I caught a quick glimpse out of the corner of my eye. It was Song Jingyan calling her. She immediately stepped to the side to answer it. I managed to overhear her incredibly sweet and gentle tone saying, I am just outside right now, taking care of some quick business. She had literally never once spoken to me with such a tender voice. This whole marriage was nothing but a totally forced arrangement right from the very beginning. For 5 agonizing years, we were constantly at each other's throats. It was basically impossible to even sit and eat dinner together, so expecting sweet, loving conversations was just an absolute fantasy. The frustrated officer behind the desk actually had to ask us twice, are you two planning to sign these legal papers or not? I shook my head. I honestly felt quite awful for the original owner of this physical body. Su Anqing clearly never had even a tiny ounce of space in her heart for him. Su Anqing, I finally called out to her. Raising my voice, I demanded, could we please just finish up my paperwork first this time? Su Anqing always made Song Jingyan her top priority anyway. She always made sure to put him first. The original owner of this body fought so bitterly over this exact detail, but she just remained completely careless and stone cold. That previous guy was honestly an absolute fool to ever think that he could ever win against someone like Jing Yan. It was just asking for pure misery. Su Anqing was exactly the same way. Honestly, if she had just put me first this time, wouldn't she be able to openly flaunt her true love so much sooner? Su Anqing's expression suddenly dropped. Then she spoke softly into her phone to the guy on the other end, saying, just let Dr. Zhang do your checkup first. I am coming over right now. I am heading there right now. 20 minutes. Later, when that brand new divorce certificate finally landed right in my hands, literal tears of joy filled my eyes. I finally secured the massive bag of wealth. From today onward, my only real focus is traveling the globe, throwing wild parties and living my absolute best life. I looked directly at Su Anqing and told her from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for this massive payout, seriously. Thank you for the cash. Now we will never have to cross paths with one another again. I had barely stepped outside the building when my eyes immediately landed on Gu Qinghan. She was casually driving a ridiculously shiny and stunning bright red Ferrari that was easily catching everyone's eye. I tried my hardest not to stare, but I completely failed. I happily walked right over to her. I finally have serious cash, and I am incredibly eager to spend it all. Suddenly, I heard Su Anqing's trembling, tearful voice calling out from right behind me. I quickly spun around and asked, "Is there something else you need?" She had pressed her bright red lips tightly together. For a split second, her complex facial expressions were completely impossible to read. If the original owner of this body were still here, seeing her look so utterly distressed, he would have desperately kept asking questions until he finally got a proper answer out of her. But I simply possessed zero energy for dramatic games anymore. If we are completely done here, then I am leaving. I quickly picked up my pace. For an ordinary side character like me, dodging the main plot's hero and heroine is the best way to find peace. When I got into Gu Qinghan's car and drove away, I checked the rearview mirror. Su Anqing stood there, completely alone. Cars and people rushed past her in the busy street, yet she looked so incredibly lonely standing there. But, hey, at least that annoying jerk, me, was no longer chasing after her. She was finally totally free from me, right? Gu Qinghan shot me a long, questioning look. I smiled back warmly and answered, without a single ounce of sadness in my voice. "You saved all the absolute prettiest girls in your club just for me, didn't you?" My friend was completely stunned. "I was worrying about you for absolutely nothing," Gu Qinghan muttered. "I honestly thought you loved her deeply. But the second this divorce went through, you are literally glowing with happiness." "Wait, is it seriously that obvious?" I asked in response. I quickly rolled down the car window, just so I could check my reflection. I am 28 years old right now. Even though my actual age just randomly jumped up by a whole decade, this new face is ridiculously handsome. The absolute best part? I have serious money now. I thought about it for a second and said, she doesn't love me anymore, so I'm absolutely done loving her too. We stopped at a red light, and Gu Qinghan paused. My friend just kept staring at me in silence until things got extremely awkward. Finally, Gu Qinghan broke the tension and said, "You have completely changed since that terrible accident." I just comfortably shrugged my shoulders. Look, when someone barely escapes the terrifying jaws of death, everything in life suddenly becomes crystal clear, I explained. Gu Qinghan paused for a quick second before bursting into loud laughter. "Fair enough. Go ahead and do whatever you want tonight, man. The entire tab is on me." 2 hours later, Gu Qinghan was definitely regretting that promise. The smile totally vanished, replaced by a complaint. "Haven't you ordered enough gorgeous girls already? Wow, this liquor is incredibly strong. I wasn't actually talking about you, but the entire club staff. I mean, look at all these absolutely stunning women around us." I raised my glass with a huge smirk, saying, "Oh, come on." I just threw my arm around my buddy. I confidently pointed at the gorgeous women standing everywhere nearby. "Just look at how sweet and beautiful they all are. I swear, literally any single one of them could easily replace her. They are all way better than my ex-wife." Seriously, how pathetically weird was I? There is absolutely zero shortage of beautiful women in this world. This guy had insane wealth and perfect looks, so why was he ever obsessed with just one girl? Khan smirked. "Well, I am just glad you finally understood." Right then, a slender girl walked over and started pouring a drink into my empty glass. She looked incredibly simple and completely innocent. "Please try this one, sir," she said softly. "Absolutely," I replied. I happily reached out my hand to grab the glass, but Gu Qinghan quickly snatched it away from me. "Do not just drink random things," she warned. "You just got out of the hospital. I refuse to call another ambulance for you." Saying that, she shot a freezing glare right at the poor girl. The waitress's face instantly turned pale with pure fear. She quickly bowed her head down and started apologizing frantically. "Please forgive me, sir. I had no idea. I just waved my hand casually." "Do not worry about it. My mood is actually fantastic today." Then I smiled, looking over at Gu Qinghan, and complained. "You are completely unbelievable. This is just not fair at all. You get to do exactly whatever you want, while I cannot even have one tiny sip. When your friends were handing you drinks earlier, you swallowed them down happily. So why play the strict guardian now, when it is my turn?" Hearing this, Gu Qinghan immediately flared up. "How on earth can you even compare those two situations?" She snapped back at me. "Why shouldn't I? I had already decided to become a rich, completely carefree guy again, and just do whatever my heart wanted." Gu Qinghan then suddenly asked me, "By the way, does your family actually know about this whole situation?" I completely froze in shock. Oh man, I had totally forgotten about that huge detail. But before I could even manage to say a single word, Gu Qinghan took one look at my panicked face and understood everything.
"And you lack the courage to tell them."
The original owner of this body really did not have a good relationship with his family. His parents were extremely old-fashioned and deeply traditional people, and they clearly favored his younger brother a whole lot more. He was also pretty stubborn himself. Back when he desperately wanted to marry Su Anqing, he ended up having a massive falling out with his entire family, and once her professional career started doing incredibly well, his own family's attitude toward him completely flipped for the worse. They would repeatedly scold him and loudly complain about all his petty fights. With Su Anqing, you and I both know the past life of this tragic supporting character was not easy at all. But whatever happens, the official divorce papers are resting right here in my hands now. What is there to fear anymore? Life actually got much happier in those following days, more peaceful than I ever imagined it could be. I specifically asked the housekeeper to pack up every single thing belonging to Su Anqing and send it all far away. This massive villa originally, this was the marital home bought by the parents of this body's original owner. But Su Anqing absolutely hated living here. Maybe every single corner of this massive place just constantly reminded her of the deep humiliation she suffered because of the original owner. In the beginning, she mostly just slept at her startup company. Later, as her career really started taking off, she bought a brand new apartment nearby. The original owner visited once and unexpectedly bumped into Song Jingyan right there. Even though Song Jingyan quickly made excuses, claiming he was merely taking shelter from the heavy rain, how could anyone stay calm, facing the original owner's explosive anger? He and Su Anqing got into a massive screaming fight that day. After that blowout, they completely ignored each other for an entire month. In the end, the original owner was the one who couldn't handle the silence. He backed down and compromised. Was it even his fault? His heart and eyes were completely devoted to Su Anqing alone. Well, things are much better now. This massive luxurious 3-story villa is entirely mine. Su Anqing barely left any belongings behind, but after clearing her stuff out, the massive house actually felt completely empty. So I immediately went out on a massive shopping spree. Strolling through my favorite luxury stores like a king, I pointed everywhere. I want this, and that one too. I need these. Pack up everything else for me. Right away, Mr. Chen! The store manager was practically glowing with joy. A whole team of salespeople trailed behind me, carrying my heavy bags. Suddenly, as soon as I stepped out the front doors, I bumped right into Su Anqing. She froze the second she saw me. I noticed Song Jingyan hovering right behind her. Guess his leg injury is pretty much healed up if he can wander around a shopping mall. Su Anqing opened her mouth and awkwardly explained herself. It is his mother's birthday soon, so I brought him here to pick out a nice gift. I just blinked at her. Why on earth is she explaining this to me? I really could not care less, but out of basic politeness, I gave a simple nod. But before I could walk away, Song Jingyan suddenly spoke up. He put on this awkwardly embarrassed look. Mr. Chen, please forgive me. My leg is still not fully healed yet, so I desperately had to ask Su Anqing to help bring me here today. I see you bought quite a lot of things. Aren't those bags a little heavy? Why not let Su Anqing help you carry them? I can handle it myself. Just listen to this guy talk. With that little comment, he casually reminded her that I was the one who pushed him, while completely acting like I had no right to be jealous. He played the bigger person by offering her help. I just smiled at him and replied, no need at all. My car is parked right downstairs. Besides, it is probably best not to bother Miss Su with my personal business. Song Jingyan looked completely stunned. What? I shot Su Anqing a genuinely confused look. You still have not told Mr. Song about our divorce? Song Jingyan whipped his head towards Su Anqing in absolute shock. The awkward smile on Su Anqing's face instantly vanished entirely. Her expression completely dropped. I do not like turning things into a massive public spectacle. So she was basically mocking me for celebrating. I only threw a couple of divorce parties, that is all. Was there really any reason to be so incredibly annoyed about that? Song Jingyan clearly never expected such a massive bombshell. His jaw practically hit the floor as he nervously stammered. Wanqing, you and Mr. Chen? Why did you never tell me? Hearing his shaky voice, Su Anqing finally remembered he was still standing right beside her. Seriously, who does this guy think he is? Pausing briefly, she quietly muttered her excuse. I have been really busy lately. That used to be her absolute favorite excuse to avoid me. Who knew times would change, and Song Jingyan would end up getting the exact same treatment. But I guess there really is a huge gap between the main hero and a supporting character. For him, this was fantastic, incredibly happy news. His eager eyes kept darting back and forth between me and Su Anqing. He put on a fake, awkwardly embarrassed face and quickly apologized to us. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. I honestly had no idea. I really did not mean to cause any trouble by bringing it up. Mr. Chen, you are not upset about this, right? Not at all. I have absolutely nothing to do with this woman anymore. Anyway, you two enjoy your little shopping date. I have people waiting to load my bags, since they are incredibly heavy. Just then, Su Anqing suddenly called out. Wait, what? I slowly turned back around. Is there something else, Miss Su? She deeply frowned at me. It seemed she was still not used to my sudden change in attitude. Yesterday, my mom mentioned that you haven't visited her in a really long time. Her voice dropped to a whisper. It looked like she was struggling to say this, but honestly, she had no other choice but to ask me directly. If you have some free time, please go visit her. She was talking about her sick mother, who was suffering from a severe kidney disease. completely opposite to Su Anqing. Her sweet mother always genuinely adored me. That was mostly because Su Anqing never actually told her our marriage was a completely forced arrangement. In that lovely older woman's eyes, I was just a wealthy kid who truly respected the Su family and loved her daughter deeply. She was always incredibly happy with me. Back when our complicated marriage first happened, I constantly went out of my way to care for her sick mother, just to win Su Anqing over and earn her blessing. I knew her mother was my greatest secret weapon. Su Anqing was a devoted daughter who always listened to her mom. That is probably why she hesitated to completely cut ties with me. But eventually, I laid my hands on Song Jingyan and completely pushed past her absolute limit of tolerance. Just like that, I lost my final weapon. I stood there, thought for a quick second, and finally agreed. I will go tomorrow. After all, the older woman hadn't done anything wrong. Su Anqing breathed a huge sigh of relief. Okay, I will pick you up tomorrow morning. I chuckled lightly, shaking my car keys at her. No need for that. My arms and legs work just fine. I can easily drive myself there. Miss Su really doesn't need to bother. Su Anqing and Song Jingyan both completely froze, their faces going totally numb. Early the next morning, I drove out to the nursing home. This upscale healthcare facility was located just outside the city. The medical services and amenities were absolutely top-notch, meaning the massive monthly bills were ridiculously high. Mr. Chen, you made it. The private nurse politely welcomed me at the door. Su Anqing had hired her directly. Fully knowing that my relationship with Su Anqing was incredibly toxic, the nurse always kept a safe distance from me. Su's mother was resting quietly in bed, battling severe kidney disease for over a year, had left her frail, pale, and extremely weak. But thankfully, living in this premium nursing home for the past couple of years had genuinely improved her overall health. Su Anqing suddenly glared down at the small item in my hand. She stared intensely at the food container I brought, twisting her face in complete disgust. Even the nurse thought my desperate attempts to please them were absolutely pointless, because she knew that no matter what I did, I would only ever earn Su Anqing's bitter hatred. Chen Xu, Su's mother, finally noticed me, a warm, sweet smile lighting up her face. You have been so busy lately, right? I really have not seen you around for days. I took a sharp, cold breath inward. From start to finish, I had only ever used this woman, yet she truly treated me like her real family. She had done absolutely nothing wrong. Yeah, just a bit busy. I brought you some fresh chicken soup. You should drink it later. She warmly grabbed my hand again. She stared at me for a long time, then carefully asked me, Did Su Anqing make you angry again? I quickly shook my head, but her mother clearly did not buy it. She sighed helplessly. Anqing has always been so incredibly stubborn. She always bottles everything up inside. If she hurt you, tell me. I will scold her for you. Hearing that made me feel entirely awful. I initially planned to tell her about the divorce, but the words just caught in my throat. I honestly couldn't bring myself to say it, so I ended up staying there, having a meal with Su's mother, and chatting with her for a little while longer. Before leaving, I hesitated for a long time. Finally, I managed to force the words out. I told her work would be really heavy in the coming days, so I probably wouldn't be able to visit her every single day anymore. I figured I'd slowly cut back on my visits first, then find the right moment to break the news. That was probably the best approach. After all, I couldn't keep a secret like this hidden forever. Even if I gave in and agreed to stay silent, showing up here constantly would just make her think I was plotting some new trick. Su's mother gently patted my hand, letting out a soft, heavy sigh. Chen Xu, you really are a good kid. What happened last time was entirely Anqing's fault. Even though she refuses to talk about it in front of me, I know deep down she feels completely crushed. She regrets it so much. She truly cares about you. The baby is gone. How could she not be heartbroken? My pulse started racing. A baby. Right, of course. This was the exact reason their marriage fell apart. It was the catalyst that completely shattered the bond between this body's original owner and Su Anqing. Yes, in the previous timeline, this body's original owner and Su Anqing actually did conceive a child together. And it only happened because he took complete advantage of her being drunk at a corporate dinner, using every filthy trick in the book just to claim her. That baby didn't exactly come from a place of love, but to the original owner, it was the ultimate weapon to keep Su Anqing trapped by his side. Right after discovering the pregnancy, Su Anqing felt terrible about betraying her first love, Song Jingyan. But on the flip side, she couldn't bring herself to destroy her own flesh and blood. Ultimately, she chose the baby. Her own childhood was already a nightmare, so she refused to let her baby be born into a broken home. During that specific period, her relationship with the original owner was actually at its absolute best. She would quietly eat the nutritious meals he brought her, pouring all her focus into reading parenting books. She genuinely wanted to be a great mother. That's why, right after the tragic miscarriage, she completely severed all ties with the original owner. Honestly, the whole situation is pretty messed up. Once Su Anqing got pregnant, the original owner noticed her attitude softening toward him, so he immediately decided to take even more advantage of her. He demanded she stay by his side 24/7. Whenever she pushed back, he weaponized the baby's health as an excuse, or claimed it was all just to strengthen their bond. Left with no choice, Su Anqing just had to submit. Bit by bit, her patience completely shattered. One time, when she had to travel out of town for business, she realized Song Jingyan was part of her travel team. The original owner flat out forbade it, demanding she send a replacement and stay locked at home, focusing on the pregnancy. Su Anqing instantly felt like he was suffocating her freedom. He clearly didn't trust her and obsessed over controlling her every move. This sparked a massive, explosive fight between them. Chen Xu, can't you just act normal for once? Stop treating everybody else like they're as trashy as you are, okay? Dropping that, Su Anqing slammed the front door as hard as she could and stormed out. And the tragic result, that very same night, the original owner received the devastating news. Driven by pure emotional stress and fury, Su Anqing had suffered a miscarriage. You can probably guess the rest. Their marriage instantly imploded, sparking a brutally toxic battle between them. Honestly, if you look at their past, Su Anqing already hated the original owner. But, after that tragedy, her hatred turned radioactive. She never stepped foot in that toxic house, and she completely severed every last tie with him. Then one day, the original owner tracked down Song Jingyan and shoved him down a flight of stairs. That was the absolute final straw. I stayed silent for a moment, then I said, "This is all ancient history now. The old Chen Xu is already dead. Everything ends right here." As I walked out of that nursing home, my mood was completely sour. Honestly, I didn't even know if it was because of Mother Su's words, or just the ghost of the old Chen Xu. But that lingering sadness vanished the absolute second I realized I had accidentally tossed my car keys straight into the trash can. Just like that, my anxiety shot right through the roof. Desperate, I called Gu Qinghan, begging her to come pick me up. The moment she heard my voice, she thought the whole thing was incredibly weird. "Do I look like your personal driver? Am I just waiting for your commands?" "It's not like I won't pay you," I said. "Gu Qinghan, this nursing home is way out in the middle of nowhere and completely deserted. Hailing a cab out here is literally impossible." So, completely against her will, Gu Qinghan drove out to rescue me. By the time we finally got home, it was pitch dark, and to make matters worse, it was pouring freezing rain. Seeing the absolute downpour outside, I took pity on her and invited Gu Qinghan inside for the night. I set her up in the second-floor guest bedroom. But early the very next morning, someone aggressively rang the doorbell, way earlier than expected. I cracked one eye open and sleepwalked my way over to answer it. Standing right there on my porch was none other than Su Anqing. She was just about to say something, but then footsteps echoed down the stairs. Gu Qing's voice called out, dripping with that undeniable, groggy rage of someone whose deep sleep just got ruined. "Who's at the door?" Wanqing's face instantly went freezing cold. Every single word left her mouth like she was violently grinding her teeth in pure rage. "It seems I showed up at a bad time. I sincerely apologize for interrupting you two." I just rolled my eyes hard in my head. "Oh, so you do realize you ruined someone's sleep. And honest, what's with that attitude? This is my house, okay? You're literally just my ex-wife now. What right do you even have to act angry? You're looking at me like I just cheated on you. Seriously, what's the drama for? You strung me along for ages, and I was actually generous enough to just let it all slide." I whipped my head around and yelled back to Gu Qinghan, "It's nobody important. Just go back to bed." Now Gu Qinghan was a total pro at dealing with divas, and besides, she only got stranded in that horrible storm because she came to rescue me. The least I could do was protect her sleep. Gu Qinghan stared down at Su Anqing, and suddenly, it looked like all her grogginess just instantly evaporated. She flashed a polite smile and said, "We have a guest. It'd be totally rude if I just went back to sleep." "Chen Xu, honestly, why aren't you inviting her inside to sit?" I honestly couldn't care less about manners, so I just shifted my gaze back to Su Anqing. I had zero desire to invite her in. I mean, I had literally just hauled all of her leftover junk out of the house and scrubbed the place clean. I refused to let her contaminate this house again, or my poor maid would have to deep clean it all over again. Stepping forward, I coldly asked, "Miss Su Anqing, why exactly are you here this early?" Wanqing's face turned a sickening shade of pale. It was incredibly obvious that Gu Qinghan's subtle little taunts had made her absolutely furious. But the best part? She couldn't even unleash that anger right now. If this had happened back in the day, she would have acted like the lady of the house and immediately ordered Gu Qinghan to leave. But right now, she didn't even have a fraction of Gu Qinghan's standing. She couldn't even cross the threshold into my house. But toxic women like her are absolute experts at playing the long game. Su Anqing was no exception. Taking a slow, measured breath, she completely ignored Gu Qinghan's existence and slowly pulled a key right out of her designer bag. "You left this at my mother's place yesterday. She explicitly told me to return it to you." The hidden message was loud and clear. She was only here because her mother forced her to come. "Thanks," I muttered, snatching the key from her hand. "But honestly, you didn't need to waste a trip coming all the way out here. I already have a spare." Hearing that, Su Anqing just froze in absolute silence for a moment. I just stood there waiting for a few brutal seconds. My patience was rapidly draining away. So, I smoothly nudged her. Miss Su Anqing, was there anything else you wanted? Honestly, if she couldn't take that painfully obvious hint to pack up and leave, then all her ruthless climbing to reach the top was just a total waste. She pressed her lips tightly together. No. Bam. That was the sound of the heavy wooden door shutting. I slammed the heavy front door right in her face. Gu Qinghan was still standing on the staircase, just quietly watching me. Feeling awkward, I finally asked, weren't you going back to bed? Why are you staring at me like that? Gu Qinghan narrowed her eyes slightly. Crossing her arms over her chest, she muttered. Nothing. I was just thinking that your attitude toward your ex-wife is honestly a bit too heartless. I just stayed totally quiet. If you don't have anything nice to say, just keep your mouth shut. Gu Qinghan lifted her chin proudly. Chen Xu, don't tell me you really can't see what she's actually thinking. I turned around and fired back. What exactly is she thinking? Gu Qinghan leaned back lazily and sighed. She just wanted to see you. Otherwise, she wouldn't have rushed over here so early in the morning. Just to hand-deliver a single car key. And her face wouldn't have looked so completely miserable when she saw me standing in this house. I just shook my head. So what? Gu Qinghan ran her fingers along the balcony railing, asking casually, you really don't feel anything at all? Feel what exactly? Just because she came back, am I supposed to chase after her like an obedient puppy? I actually found the whole idea slightly hilarious. Gu Qinghan stared at me, a strange gleam flashing in her eyes. She stood up a bit straighter. I just casually shrugged my shoulders. Honestly, I just feel like I waited way too long to finally divorce her. If I had known what kind of person she really was earlier, I would have dumped her ages ago. I spoke without wasting so much of my precious time. Gu Qinghan clearly hadn't expected to hear something so harsh from me. She stared silently for a moment, then suddenly turned her head and burst out laughing. Not bad at all, Chen Xu. You finally showed some common sense. I actually like this. I threw a compliment right back at her saying, oh, come on now. I am still way behind you. You're the real master of this game, escaping every messy situation without a single scratch. Gu Qinghan looked visibly annoyed at my joke. How many times have I told you already I absolutely do not have any romantic flings with those guys? I instantly nodded in agreement. I know, boss. You're just playing around with them for the sake of appearances. You clearly still haven't found your one true love yet. But doesn't every good romance novel say the picky girl eventually finds her soulmate? And when she does, she settles all those old scores from her past, multiplying them 10 times over, paying them back 10 times over. Gu Qinghan stared at me in complete disbelief and just muttered one thing. I knew talking to an idiot like you was a total waste of time. After that, she just went back to sleep. I ended up sleeping straight through until noon. When gnawing hunger finally woke me up, I grabbed my phone and saw a massive pile of missed calls and unread messages. They were all from this body's original parents. Staring at the screen, it instantly hit me why they were suddenly calling me non-stop. The news must have leaked. They had finally found out about my sudden divorce with Su Anqing. The messages screamed, did you and Su Anqing actually get a divorce? What on earth are you even thinking? How many times have I told you that Su Anqing's startup is growing incredibly fast right now? We were literally just negotiating a major business deal with her company. Now that you've selfishly done this, what are we supposed to do? You're an adult now. Why do you still make such reckless decisions out of pure anger? You just threw away your marriage. Do you ever stop to think about anyone else? You're incredibly selfish. I don't have a son like you anymore. Whatever. It was just the same old toxic complaints written over and over again. I stared at the screen for a second, dismissed it entirely, and went out hunting for some food. The smell drifting through the air was absolutely incredible. I looked over in pure shock. The dining table was loaded with an absolute feast, and Gu Qinghan was just sitting there, casually enjoying all that mouth-watering food by herself. Gu Qinghan, do you seriously have zero conscience? You're eating all this amazing food completely alone? Gu Qinghan raised an eyebrow, looking utterly unbothered. What, am I supposed to starve myself waiting for you? Honestly, she made a perfectly fair point. It was pretty hard to argue with that logic. I just walked straight over, grabbed some chopsticks, and snagged a bite of my absolute favorite fish-flavored shredded pork. Pushing all other annoying distractions aside, I have to admit Gu Qinghan really knows her premium food. The meals she orders from her private kitchen, even when packed in takeout boxes, taste unbelievably better than literally anywhere else in the city. Gu Qinghan suddenly broke the silence. Your parents called me earlier. They said they desperately needed to talk to you, but you kept ignoring their calls. I casually picked up another juicy piece of braised ribs. Yeah, I know. Gu Qinghan actually paused her chopsticks for a brief second. She glanced over at my silent phone. Shouldn't you at least call them back? I just waved my hand dismissively in the air. There's absolutely no need. Let them vent. What's done is done. They can't exactly hurt me anymore. Right on cue, my phone started ringing again. The second I answered, a furious voice immediately started screaming through the speaker. Chen Xu, right this very second. You march over to Su Anqing. Tell her you were completely wrong. Tell her you only did this out of pure anger, and beg her on your knees to remarry. Hearing that sharp, ear-piercing woman's voice, I just grimaced and rolled my eyes. I quickly pulled the phone a safe distance away from my ear. Honestly, look at their absolute audacity, dreaming this big, taking a minor scolding from them, or literally dying at Su Anqing's hands. I know exactly which of those two fates is significantly worse. Chen Xu, are you even listening to a word I'm saying? I finally sighed and replied, yeah, I'm listening, but that's going to be pretty difficult. To put it simply, I'm absolutely not doing that. Hearing my refusal, she practically exploded with even more fury on the other end. Chen Xu, is that how you speak to your own parents? I just chuckled, totally amused. Wait, didn't you literally just text me earlier saying that you no longer had a son? Did you somehow forget that part? Heads. Silence instantly fell over the line. I knew she wanted to scream more, but I had absolutely zero patience to listen. Whatever, I've already made my stance completely crystal clear. I'm busy eating. We can chat some other time. Saying that, I just hung up and permanently blocked their number. Gu Qinghan sat there watching this entire chaotic scene unfold, totally unfazed and without a single shred of fear. It was such satisfying, effortless work. She slowly lowered her chopsticks to the table, scanning me up and down with genuine amusement. Well played, Chen Xu. Dumping your toxic ex-wife is one thing, but now you've actually got the guts to completely rebel against your own parents. I still had a massive chunk of pork in my mouth. Chewing happily, I mumbled back, hey, wherever there's brutal oppression, the people will eventually rise up and riot. Gu Qinghan let out a soft, echoing laugh. Leaning across the table, she smirked. So by that brilliant logic, maybe one day my turn is coming too? I quickly flashed her a thumbs up, silently praising her sharp intuition. I really wasn't the least bit surprised by her reaction. She had literally grown up alongside the original owner of this body. She knew exactly how the old Chen Xu used to behave. Based on everything I was doing lately, she could easily sum up my actions in just one single sentence. I had gone completely insane. But honestly, if you look at the facts, anybody trapped in this ridiculous mess would lose their mind. Dropped into this world without any overpowered hero abilities, playing the role of a doomed, tragic side character. That basically means if I want to survive, I need to escape fast. Oh, by the way, help me hunt down a new place. This house isn't terrible, but random people keep showing up uninvited to harass me. It's getting incredibly annoying. It's not just Su Anqing. It's this original body's entire family network too. Literally every single relative is an absolute nightmare waiting to happen. Today, I've completely burned my bridges and permanently ended my ties with every last one of them. Who knows when they'll show up banging on my door to cause drama. I seriously lack the free time to deal with them. Gu Qinghan smirked and confidently replied, just leave that to me. Gu Qinghan truly acted like the ultimate wealthy heiress. Even though she practically spent her entire life dining out, drinking, and chasing fun, when push came to shove, she was actually incredibly reliable and efficient. The very next day, she called me up, claiming she had already scouted a stunning villa on the city's west side. The original owner had moved abroad and desperately wanted a quick sale. The property was brand new, and honestly nobody had ever even lived inside it yet. You scored a ridiculously cheap deal. I was genuinely thrilled by her lightning-fast efficiency. That exact same afternoon, I dragged Gu Qinghan along with me just to sign the property contract. We transferred the title in record time and immediately threw my old, cursed villa onto the real estate market. I quickly dialed up a premium moving company. Soon enough, sweaty movers were sprinting up and down the stairs non-stop. They worked tirelessly without catching a single breath. Standing off to the side, I watched in pure disbelief. It was only during this chaotic packing process that I realized exactly how much useless junk the original owner actually hoarded. Wait, am I going to have to pay these poor guys overtime for all this heavy lifting? Mr. Chen, what's inside this particular box? It's absurdly heavy. A sweating mover hauled a massive crate down from the third floor. It looked nicely. The place was locked tight. From the outside, you couldn't tell what was hidden in there. Just as I stepped up to take a closer look, my phone suddenly rang. I answered it. Hello. Listen, are you Mr. Chen? I am calling from the Third People's Hospital. Your wife suddenly fainted on the street. Could you rush over here right away? I just stood there, completely stunned. She was rushed to the hospital. I flatly told him he had the wrong guy. I am not her husband. The caller sounded confused and said but the contact name saved in the patient's phone that triggered a memory. Back when Su Anqing was pregnant, the original owner of this body had stubbornly insisted that she change his contact name in her phone. He made her save it as Chen Xu, baby's daddy. Su Anqing just could not win that argument, so she let him do it. I never expected her to forget to change it back, even this long after our divorce. I sighed. How's her condition now? The caller replied, the patient probably passed out from low blood sugar. Her life is not in any immediate danger, but she is still in pretty rough shape. You really need to get here as soon as possible. I nodded to myself. All right, I understand. But my hands are completely tied right now. Tell you what, why don't you guys reach out to her current boyfriend? Songjing Nian? is definitely saved somewhere in her phone contacts. If anything else happens moving forward, just talk directly to him from now on. Riff, I hung up the phone and stared at the massive mountain of cardboard boxes piled high in my living room. How long was unpacking all of this going to take? Better just move everything inside first. I figured I could organize everything properly once I actually had some free time. Thankfully, this new house was incredibly spacious. I asked the housekeeper to tidy up the belongings a bit, and then I just kicked back to play some video games. Later, I hit up a famous barbecue joint that was trending all over the internet. The food tasted pretty great, and the vibe of the place was amazing. I honestly could not resist snapping a few good photos while I was there. I immediately uploaded the shots straight to my social media timeline. I added a quick caption that said, "Checked in, just another tough day of hard work." Right in the middle of the food pics, I slipped in a very handsome selfie of myself. My friends instantly flooded that post with a massive wave of likes. Even Gu Jinghan, who is usually incredibly lazy and barely ever shows up on social media, actually left a comment. She wrote, "This place looks pretty amazing." I quickly replied back, "Have you ever eaten here before?" Gu Jinghan responded with total arrogance, "Of course I have. I am the one who opened this restaurant." I was completely speechless. She had just effortlessly flexed her wealth right in my face once again. But what truly caught me off guard was that Song Jingnian had also left a comment on my post. On the surface, he was acting like a total gentleman. But beneath that fake politeness, he was interrogating me and aggressively asserting his dominance. He clearly thought he was vastly superior to me. He wrote, "Chen Xu, even though you and Su Anqing are officially divorced now, she is actually still lying right here in the hospital. You did not even bother coming to visit her. Is that really acceptable?" The second that comment dropped, my timeline absolutely exploded. Only a tiny handful of people actually knew about my recent divorce from Su Anqing. I had not even made a public post announcing the split yet, and here this guy was, trying to lecture me on my morals. I decided to play the innocent victim. I immediately typed back a deeply sarcastic reply. I told him, a good ex-partner should just act like they are completely dead. Honestly, I was just terrified. You might misunderstand my intentions. Get it? If it does not bother you, I can swing by to see her. After all, we used to be classmates. So checking up on an old friend is totally reasonable, right? What do you think? My timeline erupted into pure chaos. People were absolutely furious in the comments, but just a few short moments later, Song Jingnia actually panicked and deleted his own comment. Did he seriously believe that deleting it would just magically erase everything? I immediately dropped a public comment, boldly asking my expert friends for some highly specific advice. Please tell me, what kind of gift should a guy bring when visiting his hospitalized ex-wife and her shiny new lover? Help me out, guys. This is incredibly urgent. Exactly 1 hour later, carrying a large premium fruit basket, I finally arrived at the hospital ward. I never expected that the second I approached her door, I would hear Song Jingnian practically sobbing inside. He was pleading, "Su Anqing, please do not stay angry with me. I know I messed up this time, but I only did all of this for your sake." Su Anqing responded with total silence. Sounding incredibly desperate and miserable, Song Jingnian cried out again, "You literally passed out on the street. The hospital staff specifically called him, and the guy did not even bother showing up to check on you. If something terrible happened today." Finally, Su Anqing's exhausted voice broke through the tension. She muttered, "I am just so tired. I want to be alone for a while." Moments later, I heard a chair scrape the floor. Song Jingnian walked toward the door. The second he swung it open, he froze in shock, stopping dead in his tracks. Su Anqing sensed something was off and slowly turned her head to look. Her face was incredibly pale and washed out. That usual arrogant, untouchable attitude she always carried around with her was completely gone now. She was lying there on the hospital bed, hooked up to an IV drip. She looked horribly weak and remarkably fragile. The moment she saw me standing there, a sudden, sharp gleam flashed across her gloomy eyes. She seemed slightly nervous and visibly flustered. She whispered, "Chen Xu, what are you doing here?" I casually brushed right past Song Jingnian and walked straight into the room. I truly did not care about anyone mocking or taunting me right now. People were already claiming that right after our divorce, I did not care if my ex-wife lived or died. Look, we shared the exact same classes back in college anyway. There was absolutely no need to blow this whole dramatic situation out of proportion. Su Anqing's beautiful face instantly drained of color. She had definitely seen Song Jingnian and me battling it out in that comment section earlier. She was deeply prideful. How could she ever stomach becoming a public laughingstock in front of everyone? This entire mess was a massive humiliation for her. Her intense hatred for me had probably multiplied tenfold by now. Just thinking about it irritated me. Anyway, I was already standing here. I sighed heavily. If there is nothing else, I think I am just going to head out now. Su Anqing's facial expression shifted slightly. Her voice trembled as she asked, "Chen Xu, do you seriously have to treat me this coldly?" I slowly raised a single eyebrow at her, and I asked her straight out, "When I had that brutal car accident, You did not even visit me until the third day. Compared to you, I am practically a saint when it comes to loyalty. Su Anqing's face turned completely chalk white from burning anger and deep shame. She opened her mouth like she wanted to argue back, but my phone suddenly started ringing loudly. It was the housekeeper calling. Sir, I have successfully packed up almost all of your belongings, but there is one specific box I have not touched yet. It is completely filled with old clay pottery. What should I do with this box? I blinked in surprise. Clay pottery? Yes, and it looks like you actually crafted these items with your very own hands. I figured I better call and ask you first. From the corner of my eye, I noticed Su Anqing standing there, looking visibly stunned by the mention of it, and then it suddenly all rushed back to me. I remembered exactly what that box was. All those hideous clay toys and pots were genuinely sculpted by the original owner of this body. Back during our college years, Su Anqing used to work a part-time shift at a local pottery shop. Back then, because the original owner had a massive crush on her and desperately wanted to win her over, he practically lived at that store. He would sit there all afternoon. He possessed zero talent for making pottery, nor did he have an ounce of patience. His absolute focus and his eyes remained glued strictly on Su Anqing the entire time. Thanks to that distraction, he would completely cover himself in wet clay every single day, bringing back home the most spectacularly ugly and bizarrely shaped lumps of pottery you have ever seen. Still, he joyfully kept at it every day without ever burning out. He felt absolutely zero embarrassment about his terrible art. Eventually, Su Anqing just could not stand watching him make such a tragic mess of himself anymore. She walked over and bluntly told him he was doing everything completely wrong. The original owner immediately seized that golden opportunity and grinned. Well then, why don't you teach me? Su Anqing flatly rejected his cheesy advance. But the original owner was incredibly wealthy, threw cash around like it was nothing, and was essentially the shop's biggest VIP customer. She literally could not afford to offend him. This ridiculous little routine dragged on every single day until Su Anqing finally quit that part-time job. Only after she left did the original owner stop visiting the store. That is exactly how that box got filled up. I spoke into the phone. None of that garbage is important. Just toss it all into the trash. I truly do not care what happens to it. Just as I finished speaking, Su Anqing suddenly blurted out, "Wait, are you moving to a new house?" I really had to admit, this woman's brain actually worked pretty sharply sometimes. I silently nodded my head in confirmation. Su Anqing instantly fired back. "Where exactly are you shifting to?" She repeated the question anxiously. "Where are you moving? Why are you doing this so suddenly?" I let out a sharp laugh. "Miss Su, exactly how many times do I need to repeat myself? We're officially divorced now. What I do, where I go, or how I live my life, none of that is any of your business anymore." Su Anqing went completely speechless, looking as though she'd just taken a brutal blow she simply couldn't handle. Her eyes slowly flushed a deep, tearful red. After a long, heavy silence, her posture softened slightly, and she murmured quietly, "If you really don't want those pottery pieces anymore, I can send someone over to collect them." I stared at her, utterly baffled by her logic. "Those are my belongings," I replied coldly. "Whether I keep them or trash them is my choice." I honestly didn't know why my words hurt Su Anqing so intensely, but that brutal rejection clearly shattered her to the core. The very last desperate glimmer of hope in her eyes vanished instantly, fading out just like a tiny, fragile candle violently blown out by the wind. Song Jingyan panicked and rushed to her side. "Yuanqing, are you okay?" But Su Anqing slightly turned her face away, actively trying to push his lingering hand off her arm. Song Jingyan just stood there, looking incredibly awkward. Honestly, I had absolutely zero interest in watching their little romantic drama unfold. I simply turned around to leave, but, right as I took my very first step out the hospital door, a passing physician suddenly called out my name. I glanced up and saw a female doctor, probably in her early 40s, standing firmly in the hallway. She studied my face carefully and asked, "What are you doing here at the hospital today? Are you feeling unwell?" I was completely caught off guard. Then my eyes locked onto the name tag pinned to her pristine coat. Head of Gynecology. A dark, terrifying suspicion suddenly crept into my mind regarding this body's original owner. He could only have one logical connection with this specific doctor, the previous baby. "Thank you for checking in, doctor, but I'm perfectly healthy," I replied smoothly. "I'm just visiting a sick friend today." I gave her a deliberately vague excuse. Hearing this, she exhaled a long sigh of relief. "Well, that's good news, but you both are getting older now. The next time a pregnancy happens, you two really cannot just carelessly abort it like that." I instantly froze where I stood. Those few simple words held an earth-shattering secret. Did Su Anqing not actually suffer a tragic accidental miscarriage? That rainy night, when the body's original owner desperately rushed into the hospital, Su Anqing had already been wheeled out of the operating room, and Song Jingnian was standing faithfully right beside her bed. "Yuanqing, what are you actually doing right now?" Song Jingnian's anxious voice suddenly echoed from directly behind me. I spun around quickly and saw Su Anqing aggressively ripping the IV needle straight out of her own hand. She shoved Song Jingyan hard to the side and started sprinting frantically right toward me. She dashed over instantly, aggressively blocking my escape route. Standing protectively in front of the female doctor, her voice trembled with intense panic. "Doctor, this is a deeply personal matter between my husband and me. You have absolutely nothing to do with it." My entire body instantly went ice cold all over again. I slowly turned my head and stared blankly at Su Anqing. For the very first time, I felt like this stunningly beautiful face was completely alien and unrecognizable to me. "Su Anqing, what does all of this mean?" The female doctor frowned in deep confusion. "Wait, did you really not know? Your wife clearly stated that you both were completely focused on your careers right now and absolutely didn't want a baby. So she made the choice to get an abortion. Did you seriously know nothing about this?" I honestly cannot remember how I managed to get back home because my whole body was trembling. The sudden brutal news left me so profoundly shocked that the room spun around me. I sat completely paralyzed in the study room for hours. Closing my eyes tightly, I remembered the novel clearly stated that his blinding, toxic jealousy sparked a massive explosive argument with Su Anqing, which ultimately caused a tragic, accidental miscarriage. I honestly didn't understand why, but the very second my mind started heavily obsessing over this dark memory, a sharp, phantom pain violently ripped through my chest. It felt as if I was truly reliving the agonizing moment he finally realized the baby was gone forever, consumed by total, crushing despair and unbearable agony. I desperately wanted to break free from these suffocating emotions. The housekeeper just thoroughly cleaned the study room. I started digging around randomly and stumbled upon a dusty box packed with his old college belongings. Finally, buried at the very bottom, I pulled out a faded college scrapbook. The tragic miscarriage plotline had already deviated massively from the original novel, so could the rest of his hidden past be entirely different too? I flipped to the very first page and found an old military training photo. Dressed in a crisp green uniform, the young guy wore a genuinely sweet smile. Right behind him on the stage, a slender and gorgeous girl's silhouette was clearly visible. Even though she was standing quite a distance away, absolutely anyone could instantly recognize that it was Su Anqing during her youthful college days. Just below the faded photo, some tiny handwritten lines read, "On the very first day of military training, a girl right next to me completely passed out from the brutal heat. I carried her on my back straight to the clinic. She was light as a feather. I honestly never expected to see her on stage today, delivering the freshman speech during our morning drill. So, her name is Su Anqing. Pretending to take a selfie just to secretly snap a picture of your gorgeous crush is honestly such a classic, relatable move." This was probably right around the exact time he first started falling hard for Su Anqing. I found the whole innocent gesture weirdly amusing and charming. The original owner of this body had apparently fallen deeply into a pure, simple love at first sight. I literally couldn't stop myself from touching my own face in disbelief. The Chen Xu written in the novel was incredibly selfish and severely stubborn. He was always so bitterly angry that he felt entirely disconnected from this old photograph. He was nothing like this hopeful kid with the warm, gentle smile. It's honestly heartbreaking to look at a young man with so many bright, shining dreams in his eyes, knowing he would later morph into such a desperately paranoid, stubbornly aggressive, and profoundly selfish villain. I kept slowly turning the fragile pages, amazed to discover that absolutely every single photograph inside was intimately connected to Su Anqing's hidden life. Candid shots of her studying intensely in the classroom. Pictures swinging a racket fiercely on the badminton court. Her long hair catching the breeze. Quiet moments eating her simple cafeteria lunch entirely alone. And photos of her hunched over, working meticulously inside that dusty little pottery studio. Next to a few of these hidden pictures, he had nervously scribbled down his most private, heartfelt thoughts. The university lectures she takes are painfully boring. I honestly don't understand a single concept. Seriously, how can one girl ace every academic exam and still utterly dominate on the badminton court? She always eats her meals by herself and always buys the absolute cheapest meal in the cafeteria. Does that even fill her stomach? She constantly looks incredibly busy. She barely even has a spare second to speak a single word to me. This heavy scrapbook was the heartbreaking story of the original owner's unrequited, one-sided love for Su Anqing, meticulously documented over 4 long years of college. He had secretly captured so many hidden, beautiful photos of every single photograph and journal entry felt radically different from the ruthless Chen Xu in the novel. It clearly seems she likes someone else, but that lucky guy definitely isn't me. Should I finally just surrender and give up? Tomorrow is graduation day. Should I gather my ultimate courage, confess my true feelings, and finally say goodbye to this painful one-sided love forever? We had barely finished taking half of our class graduation pictures together when she suddenly ran off. I anxiously followed her and discovered her mother was critically ill, desperately needing a massive amount of cash for hospital bills. This specific page was meant to display a joyful graduation photo, but sadly, Su Anqing's absence left the page entirely blank. Because of her sudden crisis, the original owner never bothered taking his own graduation portraits. My hands began trembling slightly. I honestly didn't know why, but this simple notebook felt unbelievably heavy in my trembling grip. So overwhelmingly heavy that I physically struggled to turn the remaining pages. It genuinely felt like reading any further would unleash a deeply hidden truth completely beyond my control. It felt exactly like a massive crushing boulder had been brutally dropped right onto my chest. I couldn't inhale. I couldn't even exhale. Dragged forward by some mysterious, unseen emotional force, I forced myself to keep flipping the delicate pages. The next picture, a wedding photograph. In this official marriage certificate photo, Chen Xu still wore that incredibly gentle, sweet smile on his face. He just appeared noticeably calmer, older, and far more mature than before. On the flip side, Su Anqing's beautiful face was completely icy, rigid, and profoundly miserable. Set against the traditionally joyous crimson background, her grim expression felt completely devastating and out of place. That's when I finally remembered. They had never actually booked a real wedding photo shoot. After an agonizing, stressful year of endless hesitation, Su Anqing finally made the desperate choice to legally marry Chen Xu. Settling down with a man she didn't genuinely love meant absolutely nothing to her. She had zero interest in romantic traditions. Plus, her sick mother was still trapped in the hospital, so they ultimately skipped throwing any kind of formal wedding reception altogether. We never even took wedding photos. I initially assumed that on his final night with Su Anqing, Chen Xu would have poured his heart out onto the pages, writing down all of his deepest feelings and regrets. But the harsh truth was that the page was completely blank. Not a single word was written on it. I stared at the photograph for a long time, feeling a strange heavy ache rising deep inside my chest. 5 whole years of a painful, one-sided marriage, and yet this was their only photo together. I forced away the dark thoughts creeping into my mind and kept turning the pages. But there were absolutely no other pictures of Su Anqing after that. There was nothing else. Only scattered diary entries remained on those pages. She seems incredibly busy these days. The startup company is completely new, so she has to handle everything by herself. She is working so very hard. The diary read, I cooked her absolute favorite meal, but she came home from a meeting reeking of cheap alcohol. She collapsed onto the bed the second she walked in. She even bought a small flat next to the office, just to make her daily commute easier. But why is that man there too? I know I can never compete with the special place he holds in her heart, yet I still foolishly hope that we could have a child, just the two of us. Am I truly this worthless? I visited the nursing home again today and bumped into Gu Qinghan. She was busy getting her grandfather discharged, and she angrily scolded me, calling me completely brainless. She bluntly said that playing the devoted husband is entirely useless against a cold woman like Su Anqing. I immediately turned around and walked away from her, because deep down, I knew she was telling the absolute truth. I was honestly ready to give up, but that night, Su Anqing came home. I have no idea if work went well, but she was completely wasted. I simply could not control my own emotions anymore, and I leaned in and kissed her. For the very first time, she actually kissed me back. Below that, there was a massive blank space, right until another diary entry finally appeared on the page. It just said, I think she is pregnant. I quickly kept flipping the pages, reading on. Those 2 months were easily the most peaceful days of Chen Xu and Su Anqing's relationship. Even though he knew perfectly well that her sudden warmth was only because of the baby, he honestly could not have asked for anything more than that. For years, he had been so desperately in love with this woman that he could not even stop himself. He truly believed she was the absolute light of his life. He just wanted a tiny bit of real love and affection from her. But this toxic marriage was a massive mistake from day one. His beautiful dreams ended up shattering in the worst way possible. The final page was an abortion document that had been torn to pieces and desperately taped back together. Down on the bottom right corner, I saw Su Anqing's signature. Staring at it felt like a brutal punch to the gut. I suddenly felt a sharp, suffocating pain. My entire body went completely numb, and my hands turned freezing cold. A massive flood of forgotten memories violently crashed into my mind. I felt exactly like a dying fish, desperately gasping for air on dry land, only to be violently dragged back under by a massive wave. And then, I finally remembered absolutely everything. I never transmigrated into some fictional novel's plot. I am actually the real Chen Xu. The heavy silence of the bedroom was suddenly shattered by my ringing phone, and the noise felt painfully loud. Gu Qinghan was calling me. I quickly swiped the screen to answer it. Before I could even speak, Gu Qinghan cut right to the chase. Did you go visit Su Anqing at the hospital today? She had flown out of town for a business trip this afternoon. Logically speaking, she really should not have known anything about my whereabouts. Sure, I posted a status update, but she shouldn't have known the specific details this clearly. I did not bother denying it. How did you know? She paused for a brief moment. Su Anqing just called me earlier. She was asking me a few questions about you. I just mumbled an okay and nodded. I had absolutely zero energy to ask anything else. Hearing my completely dead tone, Gu Qinghan instantly sensed that something was terribly wrong. It is pretty late. Are you seriously still awake? I was just about to answer her, when suddenly, I heard the sharp ring of the doorbell. Su Anqing was actually standing right outside. I immediately hung up on Gu Qinghan and walked downstairs to open the door, but I refused to let her inside. It was pitch black outside, and the faint glow of the street lamp behind her cast a long, eerie shadow on the porch. Half of her pale face was illuminated, while the other half was completely hidden in shadow. I bluntly asked, "What exactly do you want?" "I came here to apologize to you. 3 whole hours had passed since I walked out of that hospital room, and she only just remembered to offer an apology now?" Staring blankly, I told her without a single ounce of emotion, "There is no need. It is over. I really do not want your worthless apology anymore." Su Anqing's face instantly drained of color. "Just listen to me. I can explain everything to you. That day, I honestly acted out of blind anger without even thinking." "Did you actually do it without thinking, or was killing our child your master plan all along?" I let out a freezing, sarcastic laugh and fired back at her. "Carrying my baby in your womb was just too much of a disgusting burden for you, wasn't it?" Su Anqing fell dead silent for a long moment, then squeezed her eyes tightly shut, emphasizing every single word. She cried out, "In the beginning, I honestly did not want this baby at all. But later on, as the baby grew inside me day by day, I swear to you, my mind was just completely scrambled back then. I deeply regret doing it." "You regret it now? Don't you think it is a little too late for regrets?" I stared right through her. That pathetic, overdue remorse swimming in Su Anqing's teary eyes was totally pointless. Her shoulders shook violently, and her heavy sobbing choked off any more words she tried to speak. A faint, mocking smile crept across my face. "You just wanted me to believe that your tragic miscarriage was somehow entirely my fault. That way, I would carry the crushing guilt forever, unable to ever use our child to keep you around. It was the perfect manipulation to force me into finally signing those divorce papers. Am I right?" Su Anqing froze in absolute shock. Deep down in her mind, she had always firmly believed that I was just a selfish, stubborn, and reckless man who was driven by pure spite and petty revenge. Without a baby in the picture, I wouldn't have any leverage left to keep her trapped in this toxic marriage. She slowly opened her trembling mouth, looking like forcing out even a single word was sheer agony. "But this tragedy was just between the two of us. Why on earth did you suddenly attack Song Jingyan that day?" I stared at her in dead silence. This was the exact same woman I had unconditionally loved for years, the one I had desperately craved. Yet even in this heartbreaking moment, she was still only worried about her precious other man. I laughed out loud. There is no deep reason for it. I simply despise his smug face. He completely deserved it. But whatever. The baby is dead, and our divorce is officially finalized. You are finally a free woman, Su Anqing. Go run straight into his arms. You should be absolutely thrilled right now. "No." Su Anqing suddenly looked completely unhinged, spiraling into a mess of raw grief and frantic anger. She lunged forward and desperately grabbed my hand. "I do not love him. I do not love him at all. Please, Chen Xu, do not speak to me like that." I scowled in total disgust and was just about to shove her away, when a soft, mocking laugh suddenly echoed from right behind me. "Well, it seems I showed up at the absolute worst time." Su Anqing froze in her tracks. Turning around, I clearly saw the person standing there, someone who definitely belonged in another city tonight. It was Gu Qinghan. Wasn't she supposed to be away on her corporate business trip? She casually tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, a freezing, dangerous glint flashing in her gorgeous eyes. She smirked. "Su Anqing, didn't I already warn you before? You were the one begging for this divorce. So stop desperately crawling back to him now." Su Anqing bit her trembling lip, shooting absolute daggers at Gu Qinghan. "Whatever is happening between me and my ex-husband is, honestly, none of your damn business. You meddling outsider." Gu Qinghan just raised an elegant eyebrow. Clicking her high heels against the pavement, she boldly stepped right up against my side. Without missing a beat, she smoothly slid her arm into mine, interlocking our fingers. My heart immediately started pounding against my ribs. She tilted her head slightly, looking up at me with an incredibly sweet, fake innocent smile. "Are you seriously considering getting back together with your pathetic ex-wife?" My mind was a complete mess, so I just firmly shook my head. "I have zero intentions of doing that. Anyway, why did you suddenly fly back tonight?" Gu Qinghan tilted her chin up proudly, answering smoothly. "If I hadn't come back early, was I supposed to just let this crazy woman keep harassing you?" Su Anqing glared murderously at Gu Qinghan's manicured hand tightly gripping mine. Her furious eyes were practically flushed completely red with anger once again. "Gu Qinghan, do not think so highly of yourself. You know exactly what dirty intentions are hiding inside your heart." Gu Qinghan simply laughed out loud. She slowly turned her face toward her with a bright mocking smile. "Since CEO Su is so incredibly understanding and knows absolutely everything, why don't you explain it to me? What exactly are my true intentions?" Not a single word slipped out of Su Anqing's mouth. Her tightly closed lips were trembling uncontrollably. Gu Qinghan smirked and said, "What is wrong, CEO Su? Don't want to speak up? Then let me say it out loud for you. I was praying day and night that you two would finally get divorced so I could step forward and make him completely mine. A golden opportunity like this does not come around very often. I really needed to think this through carefully, so I wouldn't let this perfect chance slip through my fingers. Her crystal-clear voice echoed loudly into the freezing night air. Every single word she spoke struck my heavy heart, stirring up a strange, comforting warmth deep inside my chest. Gu Qinghan confidently continued her brutal speech. Take a long, hard look at yourself, Su Anqing. If you had eyes to truly see, and even a tiny shred of human conscience left, you wouldn't dare say these things right now. Do you honestly think that somebody is going to keep forgiving you forever and endlessly handing you second chances? Su Anqing's face instantly drained of all its color. Her whole body started violently shaking, looking like she might collapse right onto the ground at any given moment. She managed to force her mouth open with immense difficulty, her throat completely choked up. I really did not mean it like that. Gu Qinghan didn't even try to hear her out, harshly cutting her off right in the middle of her sentence. Her tone dropped, becoming noticeably quieter and icy cold. I told you this already. He managed to move past all of that trauma with great difficulty, and he is finally ready to start a brand new life. Do you seriously want to drag this all up again? I suddenly snapped my gaze toward Gu Qinghan. Something felt incredibly strange about what she just said. Had she finally figured out the truth? But Gu Qinghan paid absolutely no attention to my visible reaction. She just looked at her and stated directly, "Now you need to leave, and never come back here, again." Su Anqing was practically about to fall to her knees. Her shattered mind was wandering, and she looked completely, utterly broken. I honestly couldn't bear to look at her anymore, so I spoke up. Whatever you wanted to ask was nothing more than those two previous questions. I have already given you my answer. From this day forward, you and I have absolutely no relationship tying us together anymore. Saying that, I turned on my heel, ready to walk away. Suddenly, a heavy thumping sound echoed right behind me. Su Anqing had actually dropped down onto her knees. Her voice was desperately shaking. I know I messed up. This is entirely my fault. Please, just give me one more chance to fix this. Can we please start everything completely over? Gu Qinghan was the very first one to turn and stare at me. Her usual towering arrogance and fiery temper had completely vanished into thin air. Her massive tear-filled eyes were locked intensely onto mine. Her arms hung loosely by her sides, and she had quietly clenched her hands into tight fists. Her delicate little face was incredibly tense. She was visibly terrified and nervous. Su Anqing was desperately waiting for my final answer, and honestly, so was she. I slowly turned my body back around, and I calmly looked straight down at Su Anqing. Su Anqing, throughout our entire 5-year marriage, I was never as good at keeping you happy as Song Jingyang was. Honestly, it was the exact opposite. I always ended up creating exhausting problems for you, and I foolishly held on to this massive misunderstanding that I could actually claim any real rights over you. That was completely wrong of me. You truly believe that, don't you? Su Anqing's face drained of color, turning stark white. I slowly continued. Even this broken marriage only ever happened because I selfishly pressured you into it. If it weren't for your mother's situation, you would have never stayed by my side, nor would you be tangled up with me like this. These are your exact personal thoughts regarding our marriage. Isn't that right, Su Anqing? Those are the exact same words you screamed at me right before that accident happened. Isn't that the truth? Deep, overwhelming regret was splashed across her pale face. Pure fear lingered heavily in her wide eyes. I'd just said all of those awful things in a fit of rage. I was incredibly angry at the time. It was those exact panicked words of hers that finally made me realize just how awkwardly troublesome, suffocating, and truly terrible I had been. Seeing that child completely lost in her eyes, my entire heart shattered into pieces. I immediately started thinking that I really ought to walk away. I needed to set her completely free. A broken guy like me was never even cut out to stay by her side. I simply wasn't worthy at all. So later on, when Song Jingyan reached out and asked to meet up, I easily agreed. Honestly, I was desperately looking for a solid chance to clear the air with this exact guy who constantly kept shoving himself right in the middle. He was constantly interfering right in the middle of my marriage with Su Anqing. But that afternoon, before I could even ask a single question, Song Jingyan practically shoved that abortion consent form into my hands. Chen Xu, do you honestly believe that dragging a helpless baby into this mess will somehow win Su Anqing's entire heart? The brutal truth is, when you called her, I was sitting right there beside her. I heard every single word. I firmly told her she needed to stay home and skip that business trip altogether. But do you have any idea what she actually said about it? She told me you simply want to use the kid to trap her. You constantly suffocate her, man. Ever since our very first year of college, you've been absolutely obsessed with chasing after Su Anqing, right? I strongly suspect it's only because she passed out during our military training, and you happened to rush her to the hospital. Helping out other people is a genuinely noble thing to do, obviously, but that definitely doesn't mean you can weaponize one tiny little favor to force a woman to blindly dedicate her entire life to you. Don't you agree with me on that, Chen Xu? Stop acting so damn foolish right now. Because if you keep pulling these pathetic, desperate stunts, Su Anqing is going to completely and utterly despise you. Using your own unborn child as leverage, she absolutely loathes you for that. I seriously never anticipated that Song Jingyan somehow know that Su Anqing would actually show up right at that exact moment. She didn't even try hearing me out. She just collapsed beside Song Jingyan, sobbing endlessly. She seemed incredibly distressed and fiercely anxious about the whole situation. From the very beginning to the bitter end, she refused to glance in my direction even once. Later on, I patiently waited for her to calm down a bit. I desperately wanted to approach her and discuss the baby, but she instantly shut me down, throwing those exact same vicious words right back in my face. Chen Xu, how much longer will you throw these pathetic tantrums? Do you realize every single word you speak utterly disgusts me? That awful day I wandered aimlessly through the empty city streets for hours on end. Her incredibly bitter, hateful accusations just kept echoing violently inside my skull, tearing me apart. Was I truly being that painfully selfish? Was I actually that stubbornly obsessed? Was I genuinely deserving of all that deep hatred? That was my last thought before an out-of-control car came speeding directly at me, knocking me completely unconscious on the asphalt. By the time my eyes finally flickered open, I was an entirely different man. The pathetic version of me living inside Su Anqing's eyes was entirely gone. She had fabricated a completely toxic fantasy world for me, constantly painting me as a crazy, selfish, obsessive creep. But the most important shift of all? Inside my own heart now there was absolutely zero love left for her. I stared directly into her eyes and told her with chilling calmness. But Su Anqing, in this lifetime I do not love you anymore either. When I woke up the following morning, bright, beautiful sunlight was pouring into the room. I caught the mouth-watering scent of breakfast and strolled right into the kitchen. Gu Qinghan was busy cooking. I stood there, totally amazed. Eldest, Miss Gu, what massive holiday is it today that you're going through so much incredible trouble? Gu Qinghan simply pointed her finger out toward the courtyard. There's that incredibly annoying nuisance. Su Anqing spent the entire night kneeling out there in the cold, and honestly, it doesn't bother me one bit either. I casually grabbed Gu Qinghan, who clearly wanted to keep arguing, pulled her right back into the bedroom, and went straight back to sleep. Later, I sat at the dining table and happily grabbed a piece of the fried egg toast she made. I took a big bite. This was officially the very first morning eldest Miss Gu had experienced a massive cooking failure. Gu Qinghan rushed forward in a panic, trying to aggressively snatch the plate away. It's completely burnt. Stop eating it. I'll gladly whip up a brand new batch for you. I swiftly twisted my body and easily dodged her hands. No need. It's just a tragic waste of good food. It's really not that inedible. Gu Qinghan stared at me, extremely suspicious. Are you serious? I playfully held that charred piece out. Take a bite and see. The split second she leaned in, I tilted my head and planted a soft kiss on the corner of her lips. She froze, completely stunned. Her delicate ears immediately flushed, a deep, glowing red. Chuckling, I affectionately pinched her warm cheek. Why are you making such a massive fuss right now? Your voice is honestly way louder than when you boldly confessed your love to me yesterday. Gu Qinghan stood there, completely speechless for the longest time, before finally throwing her arms around my neck. Her muffled voice barely broke the silence. I really thought you had forgotten absolutely everything when you first woke up, right after that horrible accident. You lost so much of your memory back then. Honestly, I thought I'd spend my whole life taking care of a complete lunatic. I gently stroked her hair, holding her close. How could that ever happen, even if I completely forgot myself? I will absolutely never forget you. Even during those intensely dark days when I couldn't even recognize my own reflection and had completely lost faith in absolutely everyone around me, you were the only one I never once doubted. I placed my complete and utter trust safely in you, always. She looked up at me with a bright smile. Well, you finally used your brain for once. Loving you all these years definitely didn't go to waste. Hearing that, I felt a sweet fluttering deep inside my chest. I just couldn't hold myself back anymore. I looked right at her and asked, Gu Qinghan, how can you possibly be crazier than me? Falling in love with a guy like me. She beamed with pure happiness and quickly replied back. Obviously my taste is exceptional. I always knew exactly who was worth waiting for. I smiled back at her warmly. Yeah, you're right, you really are the very best. Meanwhile, viewing these events from Su Anqing's own deeply troubled perspective. Lately, I just keep running into the exact same annoying guy over and over again. And when I head to my university classes, he's always there waiting. When I go out to play badminton, he's predictably there. Even when I show up for my grueling part-time job, he somehow magically appears. His incredibly desperate attempts to get closer to me are just completely awkward, and honestly, the guy cannot act to save his life. You can literally read his extremely obvious intentions right on his face. It is getting incredibly frustrating and deeply annoying for me. It really isn't that I haven't had guys like me before, but absolutely no one has ever been this public about it. I honestly figured he would just give up after a few days, but who could have ever guessed he would turn out to be this incredibly stubborn? So, I purposefully spent extra time with Song Jingnian, deeply hoping he would take the hint and back off. You could clearly see the heavy sadness in his eyes, and honestly, he completely disappeared for many long days after that. I finally breathed a massive sigh of relief. But then again, I always figured privileged guys like him only stay interested for about 3 minutes anyway. After all, he's just another wealthy kid who has literally never faced a single real hardship in his entire life. He is absolutely nothing like ordinary people, like us. Thinking back on Song Jingnian's earlier words just made me feel even more overwhelmed and deeply stressed out. When Song Jingnian gently hinted that he really wanted to officially be with me, I just came up with a quick excuse and very politely turned him down. I honestly have zero time or emotional energy for dating anyone right now. I still have to take full care of my struggling parents and somehow keep my entire household running smoothly. But very fortunately, Song Jingnian was always incredibly understanding of my situation. Once he fully learned about my heavy burdens, he dropped the subject entirely. Instead, he simply started genuinely helping me from the bottom of his heart. But then, a sudden truly massive disaster struck my life. My mother's health rapidly deteriorated, and we desperately needed a massive amount of cash to cover her mounting medical bills. Just when I truly believed every single door was permanently slammed shut in my face, that persistent guy suddenly came back. "What do you actually want from me?" Without uttering a single word, he just quietly shook his head. I laughed bitterly to myself, completely unsure if I was mocking him or my own pathetic situation. "Fine then, let's live together," I shockingly heard my own voice saying. I knew exactly what he was really after, yet he was still deliberately playing this innocent game. But I had absolutely no other options left. I desperately needed that medical money, so I truly had no choice but to sell myself to him. His personal relationship with his own wealthy family was actually pretty terrible, which is exactly why he constantly wanted to cling directly to my side. However, I was always incredibly busy, desperately trying to survive. I literally had absolutely zero free time to ever give him. Slowly but surely, he stopped coming around as much. I honestly assumed he had finally gotten the picture and backed off. But who could have predicted that his jealousy would end up creating massive trouble for Song Jingnian? I confronted him about it a few times, but he adamantly refused to ever admit he was wrong, and every single conversation inevitably exploded into a bitter fight. Eventually, he grew quiet and distant, letting me breathe a massive sigh of relief. But then, to my total shock, I caught him chatting warmly inside the nursing home with someone else entirely. It was Gu Qinghan, his childhood best friend, whose extremely wealthy family perfectly matched his own elite status. If I hadn't stupidly stood directly in their happy way, those two would have been an absolutely perfect power couple. As a woman, I understood the tender way. He looked at her all too well. He would comfortably complain to her, throw his little tantrums, and playfully bicker with her. He would constantly joke around with her. Yet, he never once shared that kind of easy intimacy with me. How could he possibly betray me like this? He swore up and down that he truly loved me, but there he was, laughing with another woman. He mistakenly assumed I was completely drunk that terrible day, but I knew perfectly well I was stone-cold sober. I honestly have no real idea where that sudden, intense wave of jealousy and toxic possessiveness came from, but it completely consumed my entire mind and soul. I completely shocked my own self, right up until the moment I discovered I was pregnant. Weirdly enough, I breathed a massive sigh of relief. I was finally carrying his child, which meant I permanently had to stay by his side forever. I honestly have absolutely no idea how I eventually made the devastating choice to lie down on that abortion table. I foolishly thought it would be his ultimate punishment, but I was so incredibly wrong. I ended up suffering 10,000 times more emotional agony than him. Everything was rapidly slipping right through my fingers. I genuinely don't know how those vicious, cruel words managed to spill out of my own mouth. I must have completely lost my absolute mind. The exact second he cold-heartedly signed those permanent divorce papers, I finally realized that I had truly gone completely insane. How on earth could I just let him walk away? I absolutely couldn't let him leave. But by the time I finally snapped back to my senses, it was already far too late. I blindly targeted Song Jingnian and mercilessly got him fired from his high-level corporate job. I publicly exposed that he had previously accepted illegal bribes and deliberately leaked highly confidential company secrets. Now, his professional career in this corporate industry was completely destroyed forever. For several agonizing days, he stayed miserably kneeling directly outside the company's grand front doors, desperately begging for mercy. Eventually, completely humiliated beyond belief, he permanently abandoned the city, and absolutely no one ever heard a single word from him again. Even after all of that, I honestly never had the brave courage to actually change his contact name in my phone. But one lonely night, while heavily drunk, I finally tried calling him, only to discover his number was permanently disconnected. Sometime later, I heard through the grapevine that he and Gu Qinghan had actually hosted a massive, extravagant wedding together. That was the exact chilling moment I finally accepted the brutal truth. I had completely and permanently lost him forever. It was pouring torrential rain outside, and the freezing, bitter dampness seemed to seep directly into the deepest hollows of my totally shattered heart. It's all my fault. Every bit of this disaster is on me. I foolishly pushed him away and completely lost myself in the process. Please, just forgive me. In our next lifetime, I beg you, never ever cross my path again. 3 years later, I unexpectedly crossed paths with Su Anqing again. My mother is actively dying, and she desperately wants to see you. Staring at the terribly frail, exhausted woman standing before me, I honestly couldn't even recognize her face. Was this really the exact same, stunning, breathtakingly gorgeous Su Anqing I once knew? In just 3 brutally short years, she somehow looked at least a full decade older. I later heard she desperately begged multiple old college friends just to track down my current home address and to finally manage to track me down in person. Any romantic relationship between her and me was absolutely, permanently dead and buried. But suddenly, picturing that frail, severely ill older woman lying completely helpless on a cold hospital bed, I ultimately just sighed and agreed to go. But I have some pressing work later, so I absolutely cannot stay very long. A sudden, fragile glimmer of hope instantly lit up Su Anqing's sorrowful eyes. She simply couldn't believe I had actually agreed so incredibly fast. And for a brief second, she actually seemed to panic. That's completely fine. I'm just genuinely so incredibly happy you're actually willing to come with me. Her pale face showed this bizarre mix of unusual gentleness and heavy anxiety. I'm just so deeply grateful you're coming. After making a very quick phone call back to my own home, I quietly followed Su Anqing to go visit her dying mother. To my complete and utter surprise, Mother Su wasn't even staying in a proper medical nursing home anymore. Eventually, our moving car slowly pulled up and parked directly in front of a violently crumbling, severely run-down old apartment building. Oh, right, I vaguely remembered hearing rumors that Su Anqing and Song Jingyan had a massive explosive falling out a few years ago. Apparently, Song Jingyan had held onto a deeply vicious grudge deep inside his dark heart, and he purposely joined forces with Su Anqing's biggest corporate rival. Slowly but surely, he systematically destroyed Su Anqing's entire business empire. Her once thriving company completely shut down, leaving her brutally drowning in massive mountains of unpayable debt. She was completely ruined, and rumors said she was even desperately begging former, wealthy friends for cash. I honestly have no idea how she managed to survive the horrific fallout, but she ultimately ended up in this completely pathetic, rock-bottom situation. She absolutely couldn't even afford the outrageously expensive nursing home fees anymore, and she desperately lacked any decent place to live herself. She was barely scraping by just to rent this extremely miserable, decaying little apartment. As we finally stepped up to the battered entrance, Su Anqing slowly rested her shaking hand against the chipped wood, but she didn't push it open right away. Instead, she took a dramatically long, shaky breath to steady herself before finally stepping inside. Mother Su was lying completely motionless on a tiny bed, looking devastatingly sick and shockingly frail, struggling with immense difficulty just to take a single, agonizing breath. Su Anqing softly choked out, "Mom." Hearing her daughter's weeping voice, the elderly woman weakly fluttered her eyes open. But then, deliberately and slowly turned her frail face away, immediately squeezing her tired eyes tightly shut again. Su Anqing gently approached the bed and whispered incredibly softly, "Mom, Chen Xu is actually here to see you." The old woman's frail body suddenly shuddered and she painfully struggled to lift her weary head. "Auntie Su," I respectfully bowed my head in a quiet, polite greeting. The older woman's clouded eyes instantly turned fiercely red, and heavy, heartbreaking tears rapidly began spilling out, splashing right onto her bony, trembling hands. Su Anqing immediately rushed over to gently wipe her sick mother's endless tears away. I watched her try, but Mother Su aggressively shoved her back and shouted, "Get out of here right now. I absolutely do not have a daughter like you anymore." That sudden, violent push sent Su Anqing crashing hard onto the cold floor, and immediately, tears began streaming down her face uncontrollably. Honestly, I felt incredibly awkward standing there. I had no idea how this mother and daughter relationship had reached such a toxic breaking point. "Auntie Su, please do not upset yourself." Auntie Su's tears only started falling even faster now. She finally opened her mouth to speak, and her voice sounded heavy, completely choked with deep sorrow. "I know the entire truth now, Wanqing. We were so incredibly wrong. Our Su family treated you absolutely horribly." I stayed completely quiet for a long moment, processing it all. Then I simply shook my head and replied, "That is all in the past now. Everyone has their own separate lives, so we must always keep moving forward in life. Do you not agree?" She sobbed. "I did good deeds my entire life, yet I am facing this brutal punishment, but I guess I deserve this suffering. Chen Xu, you are such a truly wonderful guy, but please, do not ever come back here again." With her eyes completely red and painfully swollen, Su Anqing offered to walk me downstairs. I stopped her immediately. "Absolutely no need. You just stay here and take good care of your mother." I said that, while casually checking the current time on my phone screen. Su Anqing offered a heartbreakingly sad smile and whispered to me, "Ever since she finally found out about our divorce, she has completely stopped treating me like her own family. Now, whenever she even looks at me, she just loses her temper." Honestly, I had zero patience left in my system, nor did I have any real interest in hearing this tragic story. So, I simply grabbed my car keys and got myself ready to leave the apartment. Su Anqing hesitated for a second. She clearly wanted to say something else, but stopped herself. "Chen Xu, are you seriously in such a massive rush today? Can you not just stay and have dinner with me? Or at least have one cup of tea?" I nodded firmly. I truly am in a rush. Qiao Bao is finished with her classes, and I must go pick her up right now. Because if I end up getting there late today, then her mother will definitely make me stand in the corner again. Hearing that, Su Anqing looked exactly as if she had just been struck by lightning. Her entire body began trembling violently, and her face drained of all its color. "Oh, I completely forgot to mention Qiao Bao is actually my beautiful daughter." I flashed a genuine smile. "You have not met her yet, but her bright eyes look exactly like her mother's, while her little nose and mouth look exactly like mine." Not a single word managed to escape Su Anqing's mouth. She simply collapsed heavily onto the living room sofa. Burying her face in her hands, she burst into agonizing sobs. I turned my back and walked right out, and the very second that front door finally clicked shut, a piercing, gut-wrenching wail echoed from inside the apartment. I never bothered to look back. I just kept walking straight ahead, hopped in, and sped my car directly toward the elementary school. "Papa, you are here!" A beautifully sweet little girl came sprinting over and jumped right into my waiting arms. I scooped her up in a massive hug. "Let's go home, sweetie. Mommy cooked up something incredibly delicious for dinner tonight." The little girl instantly wrinkled her tiny nose in disgust and made the most adorable, innocent face. "Papa, I only want to eat the yummy food that you make." I gently pinched her nose. "All right, let's head home, and I will personally cook for you."